A soaking wet boy walked into a diner, shivering, starving, and completely alone. But when he pointed to a plate of food and whispered, "I'm hungry," the waitress didn't charge him a dime. What she didn't know was a billionaire was watching everything from the corner booth, and the next day, her entire life changed. On a lashing, midnight-shrouded street, Lily Harper braved the elements, her cheap raincoat soaked through and clinging to her fragile frame. She'd just finished a double shift at Rosie's Diner, fingers raw from scrubbing vinyl booths and wiping condensation from 100-degree coffee pots. She'd been running on adrenaline, Alla woke on no sleep, subsisting on hastily eaten toast. Yet the moment she saw that small outline at the bus stop, everything changed. He stood there alone, no wallet, no food, just a coat that hung several sizes too big, and eyes that pleaded before he even spoke. The rain painted rivulets down his cheeks. Lily could hear nothing but the pounding of her own heartbeat as she stepped into the storm and knelt in front of him. "Hey there, are you lost?" Her voice cracked as shivers shook her. He shook his head, pointing at his stomach before finally whispering, "I'm hungry." No hesitation, no shame, no plea for money, just honesty, a child's truth in a world that taught him to hide. Beneath her exhaustion, something snapped. It wasn't charity, it was instinct. She looked up and found herself under the gaze of someone powerful, a stranger in a dark suit, settled in the diner behind her, glass reflecting back helpless neon. But Lily didn't see him. Not then. She took the boy's hand, led him inside, draped her own soaked coat over his shoulders. The diner buzzed around them, customers sipping coffee meant for bills she'd yet to pay, waitresses stealing glances, a manager in the corner who might have scolded her. Yet Lily handed the boy a stack of pancakes, coffee the color of sun rising after midnight. She smiled. "On me." The boy's eyes glistened. Utter relief. A small hand found hers. And miles away, behind tinted windows, someone watched, noticing that this girl, this waitress, this survivor, this angel in soggy clothes, had the kind of heart that could rewrite destinies. What Lily didn't know then was that every plate she served, every smile she shared, was watched by a man who'd forgotten how to hope. And tonight, waiting until she wasn't looking, he slipped a single business card under the counter, a silent promise that her good deed had been seen. But Lily would find that out later. Right now, all she knew was the weight of that tiny hand in hers, and the certainty that she wouldn't let the boy walk back into that rain alone. Why had she done it? Who was watching? And how long could a single act of kindness echo before changing everything? Lily Harper slipped into the diner like a ghost, her battered raincoat plastered to her skin. The storm outside set a furious pace, rattling the windows and turning the street into a river of headlights and torrents. She'd just finished a double shift, 12 hours scrubbing tables, flipping eggs, soothing impatient diners. Her boots left shallow puddles on the linoleum. Her bones thrummed with exhaustion. Yet tonight something bigger than fatigue pulsed inside her, burning brighter than her need for sleep. She moved to the corner near the entrance, setting her bag down, and froze. A small boy stood against the wall, framed by the door's dim light. He looked no more than 7. His jeans were soaked, muddy at the cuffs. His jacket, a faded blue, was far too large. He clutched a damp backpack to his chest. Rainwater dripped from his hair, but what stayed with her were his eyes, uneven, vulnerable, pleading without words, or maybe screaming something she sensed before she understood. Her breath caught. She stepped toward him. "Hey," she said quietly, but he didn't flinch. He just stared, hungry, desperate. Finally, he shook his head, then raised a single finger to his throat, or perhaps his stomach. She held her breath. "I'm hungry," he whispered. Her heart seized, no dramatic gesture, no grand epiphany, just raw, gut-twisting recognition. She knelt beside him. Her hands trembled despite her will to stay calm. "Come inside," she said. She reached for his elbow gently, guiding him through a swirl of humidity and fluorescent light. The diner buzzed, coffee machines, sizzle of grills, hushed conversations. Patrons in bright coats shook off raindrops at their tables. Lily guided the boy to an empty booth. His feet barely touched the ground. She pulled a towel from a rail and tucked it around his neck. He looked up, unsure. She smiled. "It's okay. I'll sort this out." She moved behind the counter, heartbeat roaring. The manager's eyebrows shot up when he saw the boy. Maybe they had a policy. Lily ignored him. She grabbed a mug and filled it with warm water. Then scooped mashed green potatoes from the serving counter, folded in butter. When the manager frowned, the staff tensed. But Lily stayed centered. Tonight, kindness mattered more. She reached under the counter and pulled out 2 eggs, cracked them into a bowl, and whisked carefully. Her actions were simple. Butter, salt, stir. She poured batter onto the hot griddle, its steam hissing. The diner paused for a moment. Waitresses glanced. One whispered, "Boss is not gonna like this." Lily kept going, gentle in her resolve. Within minutes, a stack of pancakes sat before him, steaming, soft, golden circles. She added maple syrup and a pat of butter. She set down a plate of eggs. Then, as if instinctively, she passed him a small sip of coffee. Not enough to wake, just warmth to calm. He stared at the food, eyes trembling, then closed his fists on the edge of the table. She watched every reaction. The world outside still roared with rain, but inside it quieted, like a pause before a breaking. A hush fell. The engine noise of the kitchen was louder now. Lily realized the entire diner was watching, from the cook by the grill to the trucker at the counter. She swallowed hard. She let the moment breathe. Finally, the boy lifted a shaky hand, hovered it above the pancakes, then pressed his lips to it. He scooped a forkful of egg, chewing slowly, tears slipping. Lily wrapped her coat around him, and he leaned into her, a tiny body trusting, allowed to soften. From the corner of her eye, she saw a man in a dark suit, perfectly tailored. He sat at a booth across the room, silent. Rain shook the window behind him. Steam curled from his coffee cup. His eyes never left the pair at the corner booth. He noted every flicker of expression, every gesture. He wrote nothing, yet he watched it all. Lily didn't know that. She was anchored to the moment in front of her, a child being cared for, a human heart caring. She wiped away tears from his cheek. "You're okay now," she whispered. He nodded, lips pressed together. He ate slowly. Minutes passed in heavy silence, broken only by spoon on plate, hum of kitchen, rain against glass. Lily watched him finish. He met her eyes. "Thank you," he whispered, voice cracking with relief, fatigue, gratitude. Lily's throat tightened. "You're welcome." She fought the urge to break, but she straightened, put a gentle hand on his shoulder. "How about another?" He shook his head, just enough smile to lift the fear in his eyes. He pulled back the towel and stood, rocking. She slipped a 20 into his pocket. "Here," she said gently, "for later." He shook his head, but accepted it. Lily stepped behind the counter. She thought she was invisible, just another waitress doing the right thing. But across the room, the man in the suit closed his eyes once, then slid a tiny card under the corner of the counter. She would find it later, something small that said he'd noticed. As the boy walked out into the rain, small figure disappearing into the black night, Lily returned to work. Everything buzzed back, but nothing was the same. She didn't know who watched her, didn't know that a powerful man's heart betrayed him every time he remembered the warmth pouring from her. All she knew was she made a difference tonight. And somewhere across the diner, someone powerful recognized her soul. Would the kindness of a waitress in the rain ever echo beyond these walls and change her life in return? Rain pounded the glass of his limousine as the doors closed with a soft thud behind Andrew Hale. He stood in the center of the diner, feet planted, chest rising and falling unevenly. The sizzle of the grill behind him, the dull light, the faded photos on the walls, they all felt distant. Because until tonight, his world had been the kind that floats above these things. Glass tower offices, quarterly projections, billion-dollar decisions. But that moment, when a waitress had offered a meal to a hungry child, had stopped him cold. His breath came in tight bursts. He'd seen so many tragedies through tinted windows. Hunger, loss, desperation. And he'd done what he always did. Buy the solution, delegate the heart. He'd written checks, established funds, stamped approvals. But tonight had been different. That small plate, a murmured, "You're welcome," the way she had warmed the child's hands, had cracked something inside him. It felt like light peeling away centuries of armor. He watched the waitress, Lily, move swiftly between tables, kindness trailing after her like a cloak. He'd followed her across the room, watched her soothe a crying baby, smile at a lonely man. A single thread tied them. She had nothing to prove, yet gave everything anyway. He clenched his jaw. A storm raged outside, but inside, he was dangerously still, teeth ground together. He'd carried storms of his own, boardroom showdowns, public rebukes, endless expectations. He was empty, not in the sense of debt or loss, but fundamentally hollow. Successful, yes. Powerful? Certainly. But alive? He didn't know anymore. He moved away from the limo's quiet sanctuary and pushed open the diner door again. Wet wind and neon chaos rushed in, rattling the bell above. He paused, scanning the room until his gaze locked onto the booth where the boy sat, finishing his meal. Lily crouched beside him, comforting him as he ate. No stage, no audience, no strategic optics. Just truth. She turned and caught his eyes. She didn't smile. He saw her assessing him, ancient wisdom heavy in her wide, compassionate gaze. He felt naked beneath that look, his secrets stripped to raw vulnerability. He took a step forward, off the overpriced suit, off the professional veneer, towards something he hadn't felt in years, the urge to belong. He slid into an empty stool at the counter, his legs stiff, his throat tight. The cook at the grill shot him a glance, then returned to the eggs. Lily approached with soft steps. "Can I?" he began, voice unsteady, then caught himself. He eyed the squash soup she'd been ladling all night into chipped bowls. "Can I have a bowl of soup and coffee, please?" She nodded, eyes flicking to the boy and back. She looked him in the eye, not the billionaire, just a man needing something more than gas station coffee. He waited with hands folded, staring at his own reflection in the diner mirror behind him. He was a contradiction, commander of empires, yet tonight he was a man learning how to hope again. When the waitress returned, she placed the bowl in front of him. The soup steamed, orange and simple, but rich with salty carrots, herbs, warmth. She added a warm biscuit. He took a breath and lifted the spoon. Halfway through, he realized he wasn't hungry for the food. He was hungry for authenticity. He wanted to know she wouldn't stop, even if he slapped cash on the counter. He wanted proof that kindness didn't bend for money. He stood and walked to her. Every employee rolled their eyes. No billionaire should darken this diner again. But Lily stopped cleaning a table and looked at him. The hum slowed, the world caught its breath. He reached into his coat pocket and withdrew everything. A sleek business card, balanced it on the counter. "I don't expect anything," he said quietly. "No press, no tax write-off. I just wanted to say thank you." Lily's eyes flicked to the card, then to him. No sizzle, no greed, just raw vulnerability. "You're welcome," she said, only softer, like she meant it. He swallowed. The room exhaled. A future hung in that moment, because real kindness broke something open in him. As he exited, rain met him again, blade-like. The limo waited, solitary in the storm. He didn't follow. He lifted the card and studied it through a swirl of rain. Andrew Hale, CEO, Hale Enterprises. He stared at his name, the weight of all he'd built. He'd planned a board meeting tomorrow, launch a new product line. But tonight, his mind churned with a different question. What if the real product we need is compassion? He dropped the rein from his coat and walked away. The diner pinged behind him. Humanity, unguarded. He walked until he disappeared into the city's drowning lights. He was a man who had everything and nothing. And he understood that for the first time in decades. Because while he sat in that booth, sipping soup in an old diner, he felt that itching spark again. Life. And it scared him. What he would do next, he didn't know. But he would do something. Something no plan or profit could ever buy. Because she taught him tonight, kindness isn't bought, it's earned. And he needed to earn it all over again. Will Andrew reveal himself? Can Lily trust a billionaire's interest in her life? And what happens when compassion meets power? Lily Harper thought the world would forget her by morning, just another waitress in a tired diner. But when she stepped inside the following night, icy rain still dripping off her coat, something had changed. The diner didn't look the same. There was a hush, an awareness she couldn't quite place. Her shift started at 6 p.m., but she arrived early, tension tightening her chest like a drum. She slid behind the counter and flipped the register open. The bell rang with a hollow sound, echoing too loudly in her ears. She caught the manager's eye. He nodded curtly. No questions asked. But everyone else fell silent the moment she walked through the door. The night cook paused mid-sizzle. Truckers halted at their greasy mugs, and the waitress on the graveyard shift halted in mid-fold. The sense of being watched wrapped around her. She greeted them all with a polite smile, pinned her name tag, and clasped her hands behind her back. She was ready. The diner blinked to life again. The deep hum of the grill, the drip of coffee machines, the clatter of dishes. Yet Lily could still feel it. Eyes on her, measuring her, waiting. She missed him, just the way someone misses a dream they barely remember. Then she saw him. He wasn't tall, maybe 5'9", but his presence filled the room like a magnet, pulling everyone toward him. He sat at a corner booth, his suit impeccable, tie loosened just enough to indicate he belonged nowhere. He wasn't exactly expected. He wasn't drinking coffee, but staring at the empty plate his son had eaten the night before, polished clean by a kindness he'd witnessed. Lily's heart stopped. He came back, she whispered to herself. She swallowed and touched her stomach. She had no words for what that meant, but the hum inside her shifted. He looked up, caught her eye briefly, then returned his gaze to the table. No acknowledgement, just a flicker. Was it gratitude? Intrigue? Relief? Her first table was a couple in the far corner. She delivered their food as she'd done 1,000 times. Burger, fries, milkshake, trying to steady voice and spine. Her hands trembled slightly, but she didn't let it show. Midway through their meal, she slipped backstage for a sip of water. Her pulse raged in her ears. She caught her reflection in the plate warmer. Dark circles beneath her eyes, hair escaping her ponytail. She still looked tired, worn, but something else glimmered behind her eyes. Resolve mixed with fate. She pushed open the swinging door to the kitchen. The cook, Marty, big guy with 3 kids and a mortgage, grunted. "How you holdin'?" he asked quietly, already knowing something big was underway. "Just doing the she answered, plastering on a steady voice. Yet her heart pounded like touchdown drums. She slipped past him into the dining room again. The corner booth had transformed into a stage. The stranger picked up his napkin, twirled it gently, then dropped it. He patted the seat beside him. Lily froze. Was that a gesture, a request, a dare? She approached slowly, hard hammering. The other waitress hovered, waiting for instructions. He's asking for service, Lily managed. Be right there. She grabbed a menu for appearances, but she couldn't open it. Instead, she walked to the booth. Can I get you anything? She asked softly. Stranger looked up, eyes like storm glass, focused on her. Just water, he said, voice low, hoarse. She nodded and gave a slight bow, paper underarm. Left with his water, he sipped without looking up, staring at the booth's empty seat across from him. He traced the shape in the vinyl like it held a memory. Lily cleared her throat. It's on the house, she said, setting the glass upon. I just wanted to say thank you again. His head snapped up, surprise breaking his stoicism. You don't owe me an explanation, he said slowly. But why didn't you walk out that night? Lily's heart bottlenecked. His words were quiet but cut deeper than any critic could. That boy, he needed food more than me, she whispered. I was cold, wet, sad, but that plate, it mattered to him. He leaned forward, eyes searching hers. You don't know what that saved. Her chest tightened. What did it save? She was trembling, but she kept her voice steady. I just did what felt right. He let that hang, swallowed. He reached into his pocket, produced a silver card, and slid it across the table. She recognized it. Stiff, blank, no logo. Call this when you're ready, he said. Want to show you something. The card slid off the edge, clinked on the floor. She bent to pick it up, but he'd already snapped a hand around it. She handed it back, hands shaking. Not now, she whispered. I, I can't. He nodded. Then later. She moved away, blinking. She forgot to deliver the couple's dessert until they were halfway through it. They looked at her, expectant, patient. She swallowed and placed it down, kept smiling. The evening deepened, the diner's dinerness pulsing around her, fryers sizzling, mugs clinking, boots scraping. She kept glancing at the booth. He was still there, drinking slowly, watching her, and she caught herself smiling. Not because she loved his presence, but because she felt seen. The shift ended. She wiped down tables, stacked menus, flipped the sign to closed. The stranger was gone, but he'd left something, the echo of his gaze, an invitation unspoken, a promise. She stepped outside into the cold air. Rain had paused, but the sky was bruised. Her boots splashed through puddles, but there was no weight in her steps, like she had room to breathe. That night, she rifled through her purse. She found the card, a slim rectangle, matte black, blank except his handwriting on the back. Call when you're ready. She held it in her palm, heart clenched. She didn't know what would happen when she called, but she knew it would matter. Because tonight, she discovered she was more than a waitress, more than a helper. She was a person whose instinct could start something bigger than she'd ever imagined. And across town, another man lay in his bed, staring at his reflection in the night, wondering if she had what it took to change both their lives. Why would he return, and what would he ask of her next? She woke to the same sound she always hated, raindrops rattling against the window with desperate ferocity. Her first thought was the diner, the boy, the look in his eyes. Then she saw it, tucked between her door frame and the outside latch, a thick white envelope, rain-splashed and trembling in the dark. Her breath hitched. She froze, unsure how to move. Her fingers shook when she pried it free. The return address was as unfamiliar as it was grand. Andrew Hale. The name made her chest tighten. Andrew Hale was more than a passerby. He was that man in the booth. Her stomach roiled with possibilities. She had to know what was inside. Hanging her coat on the back of a chair, she peeled open the envelope, careful to spare the contents. Inside were two things, a check and a piece of paper folded thin. The check number made her catch her breath. $50,000. Her first instinct was disbelief. It must be a prank. Maybe I found someone else's mail. She stared at the numbers, heart racing. $50,000? She tore the check from its form like a lifeline and smoothed it over the tabletop as if she could read the fine print by touch alone. Then she unfolded the note. Lily, you didn't keep food from someone who needed it. You shared. And that act of courage saved me. I meant no drama. I just needed you to know your kindness matters. Use this money to build what you've always dreamed of. Andrew. She closed her eyes. Hand curling to a fist, she squeezed as if an anchor dropped in her chest. She waited, hoping maybe it had all been a dream, but rain pounded on, insistently real. She sank low into a stack of old catalogs and swallowed like she was afraid to breathe. $50,000 was more than her apartment rent for 3 years. Enough to free her little brother from debt. Enough to turn the shabby little storefront into something with walls that meant something. But why me? The phone buzzed, her brother, asking if she'd forgotten tacos tonight. She forced her lips to curve into a smile. Running late, she whispered, though she stayed unmoving for minutes. The check felt heavy. Her life, everything could change in a single moment of kindness. But that much change replicated fear more than excitement. What would she do with so much money? Could she even manage it? Would it vanish too fast like tips during a slow week? Her phone glowed again. Another message. Ready when you are. No name. She recognized the tone. It was his. The note signer, Andrew. She swallowed hard. Curiosity stabbed. He's waiting. He wants to talk. Her pulses hammered. Can she meet him without losing herself? She thought of the diner. Coffee stains, broken stools, steam rising from mugs shaped by necessity rather than style. She thought of the Bushkayim boy, hungry, weary, trusting her with a single word. I'm hungry. The memory cracked her heart. She did the right thing. Could she do the right thing again, even if praise or money clouded intent? She flicked on the lights and paced her tiny apartment. She needed air. She needed time. She grabbed her coat, still damp, still familiar, and kissed the check as if it were an old friend. Then she stepped outside into the early morning drizzle. The city trembled in half-sleep, neon bleeding into tired pavement. Diner lights glowed like beacons. She walked straight to Rosie's, her refuge, the place where small kindness made big difference. The bell above the door trilled behind her. She remembered its echo, its promise. The diner smelled like home, coffee, sizzling bacon, something hopeful. Lily slid into her uniform, refused free coffee, refused questions. She served with her usual grace, but something inside had shifted. A quiet tremor pulsed in her chest, like the world had just presented a mirror, and she saw someone new. She returned to her apartment at noon to find another envelope. Nicer this time, a heavier seal. Her pulse slammed as she dared open it. Inside was a handwritten invitation. Lily, I'd like to talk, no agenda, just coffee. At your diner, on me. Tomorrow, 2 p.m. Andrew H. Coffee, at your diner, she closed her eyes. A swirl of dread and hope lit her limbs. Maybe he'd thank her in person. Maybe he'd want something she couldn't offer. But the address was hers. The hours were hers. She could say no. But would she? On a whim, she knocked on the framed old door at the entrance of her building, something she hadn't done for months, and hugged her brother. She told him in fragments. Tears threatened her voice. He patted her back. You saved someone tonight, he whispered. Whatever happens, don't forget, you do good. She whispered back, I only did what anyone would do. But she meant it more. That night, she researched budgets, cafe plans sketched in the margins. She wondered if $50,000 would stretch. Lease prices, licenses, furniture, food permits. The numbers stared back with calculated capitalism. She wrote cozy tables, reading corner, serve food to anyone who can't pay. It felt naive, yet her heart pressed the pen hard. Sleep came light, threaded with dreams of roaring ovens and first customers. She woke with the same weight at her chest. The next day at 1:45 p.m., the diner's door clients thumped open, and there he was. Andrew, crisp suit, casual tie, eyes unchanged. He walked straight to the counter. She nearly dropped the coffee pot. She set it down, wiped her hands on the apron, but didn't step away. He took the seat she'd reserved by the window, first booth, right side. His posture was calm, like he belonged just as much as the phone booths near the door. She brought him coffee, and her pulse raced. He took it without sugar or cream. No small talk, just a nod. Thank you for coming, he said quietly. No volume, just gravity. She swallowed. Thank you for the money. Her voice shook. He offered a small smile. Promise you won't hate me. She blinked. He leaned back. I wanted to help someone who changes the world quietly. He looked away. Tonight, sir, I watched you keep on serving. You didn't charge military vets who forgot their cards. You comped someone whose baby was crying instead of eating. You did it again. She closed her eyes. The engine of the diner hummed. Coffee hissed. He closed the distance. This isn't a loan. It's a hand up. I don't expect fancy opens, branding, Instagram. I expect you. His gaze was steady. But I will help, mentor, open doors, advice when you're ready. Her breath caught. He reached inside his suit and produced a silver card, the same one from the envelope. She stared, recognition cracking the tension. He slid it toward her. She didn't reach for it. Take some time, he said. But when you're ready, call me. That was it. He finished coffee, left a bill that doubled the check, and walked out like a man who'd finally taken the first step. She stood behind the counter long after he left. Customers drifted in and out. The shift ended. She cleared the tables, wiped the counters, locked the register. Her hands shook. Outside, rain eased. Night sky cleared. She held his card under the streetlight. The words glowed. Andrew H. Hale Enterprises. She slipped it into her pocket. The following days blurred. She woke before sunrise and rubbed her wrist, empty of bracelet, heavy with possibility. She visited lease offices. She phoned small business associations. She visited cafes, notebook open, observing chairs, menu boards, lighting choices. She sketched until her fingers hurt. She revised numbers until she believed it could happen. At 11 a.m. one morning, her brother burst in with an acceptance letter from culinary school. He had a full scholarship. Her chest seized with joy. The money was already paying more good than she could count. She stared at her sketch, cozy space that served dignity. Tears slid down. He would never have gone if she hadn't dared to dream. That afternoon at 2 p.m., she paused behind the counter. Could she now pick up a pen and call the number? Her phone buzzed, a message from her mother. Happy birthday. She paused, then texted, I think I might be making plans soon. She exhaled. The card was in her pocket, heart pounding. The boy, the diner, the dream, all echoed. She tapped the note on the counter near the tip jar. The whole diner felt alive. She lifted her head and said softly, It's time. What happens next? Will she call him and risk losing everything she loves? Or will her dreams stay tucked in sketchbooks, safe but unrealized? Rain had stopped, but the air still held the scent of storms past. Lily stood at the edge of her empty storefront, walls bare, AC silent, dreams waiting to be built. In her hand, she held her phone and the sleek black card with Andrew Hale's name across the front. She took a breath as sunlight crept through clouds overhead, promise shining with it. She opened the card again and again, thumb brushing the smooth surface. Call when you're ready. Her heart pounded. She thought of the diner, of that night when everything changed, of the hunger she banished with food and kindness. Now, this chance loomed before her, a future born from a simple gesture. At 2 p.m., the diner would be slow, perfect for a private call. Her shift ended just before noon. She would take the afternoon, maybe find a storefront, bite the bullet, and start. Momentum felt electric. She had the funds. She had the vision. What did she lack? Fear pricked at her, paralyzing, heavy. What if she built it wrong? What if no one came? What if she wasn't enough? Even with a billionaire's support. But stronger than fear was resolve. She'd helped a small child because he was hungry, and in doing so found her own hunger, to create something bigger than herself, to change others' lives just like theirs had been. That ripple started with one plate, but it needed a pond. That afternoon, she sat in the diner back booth, phone in hand. She watched the rain droplets leave tide lines. Customers sat, coffee steam halos, late orders, laughter in low tones. She watched them think differently. Now she was no longer just Lily the waitress. She was someone who could build something. Who might build something. Her shift ended. She dropped the apron and washed her hands in cool water. She felt the weight leave her shoulders. Nervous energy buzzed instead. She gripped her phone, thumb hovered over the contact. Moment of truth. Hello, Andrew's voice was calm, measured. It's Lily. Silence waited. Hi, she answered, voice less even than she hoped. I'd like to talk. They arranged to meet that evening in a quiet cafe he chose downtown. Neutral space, no cameras, no announcements. Just two people with a shared mission, to build something meaningful. Dinner conversation began cautious. She mulled finances, zoning laws, business plans. He listened, interjected where needed, but more everyone's notes, not directive tones. He believed she'd be the CEO of her dreams. That night, she sketched her vision on cocktail napkins, a space with warm lighting, mismatched tables collected from trades, a tiny reading nook for kids, a pay-it-forward jar, window seats for conversations, a counter where people without money could eat. More than food, dignity. He smiled, tapped notes. This could work. He offered contacts, local landlord eager to help, permits, initial inventory access at cost. Her eyes blurred. This was real. She paused. I'm scared of failing. He leaned forward. I won't let you crash alone. Words like a shelter. They toured potential spaces the next day. Lily slipped between dust sheets and cracked walls. She envisioned rugs, chalkboard menus, fresh flowers. Andrew watched her light up, eyes soft with awe. In one space, they found a wobbly counter. She set a chipped plate onto it, balanced there. Imagined flows, crowds, laughter. He watched her move as if she owned it, as if she already did. He tapped his phone. Within the hour, a lease offer was drafted, one that prioritized her control, low rent for the first 6 months. She gasped. He handed her coffee. She smiled. No first coffee jitters. She smiled because he believed her, because opportunity now hung within hands of her own making. She turned to him, voice small. What's the catch? He shook his head. This isn't a playground for your failure. I'm investing in you, not just a concept. You keep your values. I support them. His gaze quieted. You've earned this. You just have to own it. The next morning, she showed up before sunrise. The first crack in the lock made her heart beat thunder. She lifted heavy boards, revealed a blank canvas. She ran a finger across the dusty window. The world inside and outside collided. She began renovations, sand, paint, polish. Hours blurred into days. She recruited friends. She painted walls in muted yellow, warm sunlight captured in paint. She stained mismatched tables. They painted a mural of the diner scene, the pognon. Lily, the stranger in the booth. They laid tile, hung lights, built shelves for books. Polish became ritual and intention. She posted photos, before and after. People responded, neighbors curious, online crowds supportive. A story born of kindness, they wrote. A cafe of hope, they posted. Opening day arrived, nails tapped on freshly sanded counter. The line stretched out into the street. She saw families, entrepreneurs, veterans, weary souls. She served coffee, keeping one sleeve tight around the pay it forward jar. A little boy wiped his mouth on a napkin. This is the best pancake ever, he breathed. Tears prickled. She had created this. Then she saw Andrew slip in, discreetly, no entourage, and slid into a booth near the back. She drove past patrons, calm under floodlight. He gave her a thumbs up, tiny, quick. She caught his eye, paused. She felt incredible relief. It had worked. Her phone buzzed, text from her brother. Signed up for school. I start next week. Love you. And a ping from Andrew. Let's talk press tomorrow. We can build this bigger. That night she counted tips. Not 500. More. Enough. Enough for rent, payroll, next week's costs. Rain tapped the window again. Outside, the city hummed. Inside, Lily tuned the jar's coins with her fingers. She picked up her phone, thumb paused over Andrew's contact. She dialed. Thank you, she whispered. Tomorrow we grow, he said softly, hope lifting in his voice like a sunrise. She closed her eyes. Under 12 hours old, this dream already breathed. And it was hers. She gazed at the mural, the final piece, a silver bracelet painted around her wrist, blinking in the cafe's light. Always. Everything. What's next? Will Lily find balance? Power? Kindness? Leadership? Will Andrew stay at her side? Or step back to let her shine? The afternoon sun slanted through the cafe windows like a promise. Lily stood behind the counter, wiping her hands on her apron, eyes fixed on the entrance. Every nerve pulsed with tension. Today wasn't just any day, it was the reveal. The day she invited Andrew Hale to show the world what had grown from that single act of kindness, from the money, from the dream whispered into existence in the back of Rosie's diner. She took a breath, scanned the room. Lace curtains, mismatched tables, a shelf lined with community art, an image of the boy, Lily, and Andrew painted there. Excitement churned in her stomach. What had been scribbles on napkins, clippings in notebooks, and an idea in her heart was now real, now visible. And today, reporters, investors, local heroes all would see it too. The bell above the door chimed before the clock even hit 10. Lily stood at the counter, heart pounding. She gestured to Sarah, her first hire, who winked and nodded. The chairs were in place. The coffee roasted. The smell of fresh bread baked just minutes before. Everything ready. Then he walked in. Andrew Hale, his posture relaxed, tie undone, eyes scanning. He smiled like the building's walls breathed easier. Lily felt hers loosen. He took a seat in the center booth just as they planned. Reporters snapped photos through the window. Sarah cleared her throat. "We're ready." Lily swallowed and walked over. She set a fresh mug of coffee in front of Andrew. He toasted her with his eyes. "Let's do this." She turned to face the assembled press and community leaders. 20 people, cameras, cell phones pointed toward her. She could feel the lens in her gaze, the scrutiny like stretching lights. She cleared her throat, voice steady until she spoke. "Good morning," she began. The hush that followed felt like the world stopped so they could hear her. "Welcome to Lily's Place. This isn't just a cafe. It's a story made real. A story of kindness, courage, and belief." She paused, looked at Andrew, whose kindness had started this journey. She pointed to the mural behind him, the memory of that night. Rain, pancakes, hope. She continued. "1 year ago, I was a waitress in a different diner. I gave food to a hungry child because it was the right thing to do, and a stranger was watching. He later gave me the chance to build this place. But more than bricks and boards, this place is built on values." She glanced at a veteran volunteer, single mothers, elderly neighbors, those who fought hunger, isolation, shame. She said, "We serve anyone who's hungry, no questions asked. We want to meet people where they are and leave them somewhere hopeful." A reporter raised her hand. "Lily, how did you feel when you received $50,000, and why open this here?" Her voice cracked, but she stayed focused. "Fearful, overwhelmed, but also determined. I knew this wasn't about me. It was about what this community deserved, a space of dignity. We chose this neighborhood because it needed us, because people here deserve to be seen." Another camera flashed. Lily watched reporters scribble. Then she turned to Andrew, voice softer. "Thank you for believing in me." He nodded, true warmth in his eyes. "Thank you for believing in yourself," he answered. Lily continued, "And today we're not just opening doors, we're opening hearts." She gestured to a long table down one side, a community board. "We're launching a monthly kindness grant. $500 up to 5 recipients each month, people or families who could use a spark." Murmurs of approval filled the room. She added, "We're also partnering with the school next door to sponsor free storytime breakfast for kids in need. Food and books. That's how we're going to grow this into something bigger than coffee." The mayor of the town stood and applauded. Investors sat up straighter. Lily's throat tightened. This was more than hope. This was impact. Lunchtime arrived and the bell chimed again. Pressure tightened her voice as plates flew out. Sandwiches, soups, coffees, seconds for those who needed them. At 12:30, Andrew tapped her wrist. They'd prepared gift bags, bags of essentials for low-income seniors. He picked a woman in her 60s. Lily brought the bag to the table herself. Oatmeal, toiletries, a paperback novel. The woman's eyes welled. Lily squeezed her arm, whispered, "You deserve this." The reporter beside her caught the moment and snapped a photo. Two women smiling, connection visible in every wrinkle on the older woman's face. The cafe brimmed with smiles and conversations. Business took hold of sincerity. Lily watched Andrew kneel to help a volunteer refill water. Completely off script. Perfectly real. Her heart hummed. Late afternoon, Lily handed out the last free coffee, locked up the donation jar, and ushered Andrew to the front. They stood under the sign, "Kindness served daily." Cameras clicked. Reporters murmured excitement. Andrew leaned close. Her pulse thrummed with electricity. "Lily, story of the year," he whispered. "You told it." She nodded, tears prickling her eyes. "We did it." An editor from the local journal stepped forward, microphone at the ready. "Lily, one more question. What's next for Lily's place? She glanced at Andrew, at the table lined with empty tins that once held coffee, now full of coins and change, still weighing between zero and possibility. She thought of her brother starting school. She pictured future mornings there, neighbors sipping lattes, struggling families sipping soup, a child drawing pancakes in a corner, dignity rebuilt. She answered, "This is just the beginning. We're planting hope here. Tables of possibility, nights of kindness. Next week, we start a mentorship program. We'll partner with culinary students, people like my brother, and check-in dinners for those recovering from homelessness. And I have a dream for a food justice fund. I'll need your help." She looked at Andrew and then out at the gathering crowd. This is the reveal, not just of a cafe, but of a purpose. We're here to prove you can build something powerful on compassion alone. Her eyes burned with purpose. The reporter lowered camera. The crowd exhaled. Lily felt light and whole. Andrew squeezed her hand. "You said you could do it," he whispered. "Now watch them follow." They began shaking hands, pouring soups, handing gift cards to local volunteers. Reporters clustered to record testimonials of community members whose lives had shifted thanks to Lily's place. Even into the evening, the light softened. Lily closed her eyes for a moment, hearing laughter, seeing hope, feeling purpose. Tears slipped. Later, she followed Andrew outside. A press leviathan hovered nearby. Questions, news angles, viral potential. He lifted his chin. "Ready?" She met his gaze. "Let's show them kindness is contagious." They stepped into the bright glare, cameras flashing. But behind them, in the window, the mural glowed softly. The night they first met, the plate, the moment that changed everything. And this time, it wasn't only theirs. What will the headline say? How will the world respond to a cafe built on empathy and action? Can the kindness movement scale, or will growth threaten its soul? Lily stepped into Rosie's diner on a soggy Tuesday afternoon, still living in the afterglow of the grand reveal. The cafe had opened, press had celebrated, but tonight she returned to the place where her journey began. She cradled a cup of black coffee, steam swirling between her fingers, the card still blank in her pocket. She needed answers. She paused near the counter, the familiar hum of burner coils, the smell of melted butter on toast. It grounded her. She found the corner booth and sat, back straight, heart pounding. Would he come? As if summoned, the bell over the door rang. She looked up. Andrew Hale entered, coat dripping, face unreadable in the harsh fluorescent light. Everything paused, even the dishwasher's steady clang. He moved with purpose and sat across from her in the exact seat where she'd first met him as stranger customer. "Thank you for coming," Lily said softly. Her voice caught in the middle of the diner's rush, but she found resolve in his eyes. Solid, calm, waiting. He nodded. "I wanted to talk about why I chose you." Her pulse squeezed tight. She leaned forward. "Why me?" He took a measured breath and closed his eyes as though trying to distill the moment. Finally, he met her gaze, deep in earnest. "Because you're rare," he said. "I've built companies, funded schools, launched initiatives, you name it. But I've never seen something like what you did that night with that boy. Not in an email, not in a board memo, not in some posh gala." He paused, then continued. "Charity is easy if there's an audience, but what you did, you gave and walked back to work. You didn't wait for applause. You didn't ask for validation. You didn't make a press release." Her throat tightened. "I just did what felt right." He nodded. "Exactly. You felt it before you thought about reward." He leaned back. "I tested that. I came again. I watched you care without needing anyone to know." She swallowed, breathing with effort. "I never even saw you." He allowed a small smile. "That's the point." He unfolded a crisp piece of paper and slid it across the laminate table. It was a transcript, anonymized messages from employees at Rosie's diner. Lines like, "She always gives the scraps to the ones who need them. She covers military vets when they forget their card. Once she gave a homeless man a family-sized pie and a cup of coffee and asked nothing. The words painted a picture of Lily's generosity and heart, not just isolated to the boy, but woven through every shift she'd worked. Tears pricked at Lily's eyes. She looked down. I didn't ask anyone to tell you. He shook his head. But they did. You built small moments of dignity night after night. People noticed. She swallowed. But how did you find out about those stories? He straightened, voice low but firm. I have resources, people who pay attention. When I heard about what happened after the reveal, how many lives you'd touched once you'd built Lily's place, it made me realize you already are the future I want to be part of. She looked up, heart thunderous. What do you mean? He leaned forward. I don't invest in businesses. I invest in people. Before this, I thought data, scalability, disruptors, that's what drove change. But I was wrong. People drive change. Empathy drives change. You've built a movement on a foundation of radical kindness. Her breath caught. The car hops in the diner paused their orders over the PA system like they were listening in. The din of coffee and chatter seemed distant. He continued, I want to help you scale what you started. More locations, a nonprofit foundation. He tapped the transcript. Your team here. We can help them grow, train them, fund them. Tears trickled down her cheek. She clasped her hands. I don't know what to say. Say you'll do it, he replied softly. Say you'll let me help. She swallowed. Images raced through her mind. Warm community mornings, the boys' beaming smile, volunteers, employees who believed in her cause. She knitted her hands. Yes, she whispered. Yes, I will. He offered a small, encouraging smile. You selected your cause before you knew where it would take you. Now let's take it someplace bigger. She closed her eyes, aware of why this all felt so overwhelming, but also exactly right. I want to help people feel seen, to give them something bigger than just a meal. He nodded and tapped the transcript again. Your actions already mean more than any philanthropic branding could express. He looked up at her, a pensive look in his eyes. But I need to be honest about something. Not everyone will feel comfortable with this. Her brow furrowed. What do you mean? As you grow, he began, voice steady, people will stop being comfortable with you. They will question your motives. They'll ask why a billionaire is behind you. They'll suggest you're a charity case, not a leader. They'll mock you for staying true to values instead of chasing fast returns. She absorbed this. You think it could happen? She asked quietly. He nodded. When you scale empathy, some will resist it, but you've built on authenticity, and authenticity fights back. She met his gaze and let her thoughts still. I'm not afraid of that. He let out a sigh of relief mixed with admiration. You should know this isn't about profit. It's about people. If you're ready for that, fans and critics alike, we'll build together. Her breath evened. She sipped empty coffee, warmth pooling inside her. I am. He stood. She stood too. He extended his hand. Business handshake? No, something more. A gesture of partnership and trust. And this, he said quietly, is when I become your partner. They shook hands, lingering. Outside the window, the diner buzzed with life. She watched customers smiling over grilled cheese, kids coloring with crayons at window tables. A man laughed, crying, as he remembered ducking Lily's free upgrade. She touched the back of the booth, heart expanding. This is it, where she began, where she will grow. Andrew spoke again. I'll set up funding and mentorship, but you stay in the driver's seat. No brand invasion. You decide cadence, people, vision. She nodded. I have a plan. We'll build a board of community trustees. Keep ties to the neighborhoods. Keep giving unsung acts and stories. He smiled. Perfect. She felt tears again. Not weakness, clarity. Because as much as this was about food, cafes, and coffee, it was also about connection, and he would help her hold it. He stood to leave. She reached over, placing her hand on his forearm. Just thank you for believing in me. He looked at her, deep and full. I believe in this. In you. His voice softened. At scale, you can change the world. One person, one meal, one moment at a time. He left a stack of documents, initial funding, mentor contacts, resource lists, and he left her to digest it. Once he walked out, Lily watched the door swing closed. She exhaled deeply. The diner life rushed back. The coffee buzz, laughter, plates, yet nothing felt the same. Because she knew now, behind the curtain, a quiet revolution had begun, built by empathy, nurtured by partnership, and destined to roar. She whispered to herself, let them talk. We're building something real. And sitting alone, she allowed herself one question, soft, determined, fierce. What happens when kindness becomes unstoppable? She stepped into the new space as if stepping into her own heartbeat, raw, open, trembling with possibility. The bare floorboards echoed under her boots, unfinished walls waiting for colors. Light poured in through dusty windows, webs of promise in overhead beams. The air smelled of sawdust and dreams. Lily inhaled it all, the aura of future mornings calling her name. She carried a coffee cup from a nearby cafe, the heat warming her palm, anchoring her to now. Next to her stood Andrew, sleeves rolled, his eyes fixed on something just beyond them, the next moment where it would all come together. They stood in silence until she spoke, voice soft but resolute. This is it. He nodded, voice quiet. Yes, yours. A pulse of exhilaration rattled her bones at those two words. Yours. Not a collaborator, not an employee. This was her space. They spent the morning walking the floor plan, sketching lines in the dust. She pointed out where community art would hang, where the pay it forward board would sit, where the kids' reading nook would fit in a corner. Andrew paced each stride with interest. He paused to run his fingers over a rough plank and asked what color she envisioned there. She told him, muted sage green that caught light and hope. He nodded, words no contractor could deliver, but a partner could. By midday, their team had arrived. Designers, contractors, volunteers from Rosie's. Each carried in boxes with paint, brushes, books, tiles. The energy shifted. Where before was stillness, now the buzz of hammers, laughter, plans whispered. Locks clicked open, cables were rolled out, lamps unboxed, shelves assembled. Lily moved from person to person, explaining, guiding, mentoring. She was both leader and student, learning how to shape vision into reality. The paint sprayers hissed, a faux sunrise brushing across the walls. Children's laughter echoed when two teenagers from the volunteer crew wheeled in crates of gently used books donated by the local school. She pictured children curled in tattered chairs reading beneath the soft glow of lamps on rainy days. The thought choked her with joy. By late afternoon, the floor shone under coats of sealant, mason jars filled with pens and napkins, labeled, "Tell us your story." Customers would write their dreams in them. Andrew handed her a packet of orders from local bakeries, fresh pastries and loaves crewed up so the ovens at home would join the plan. She felt the bristles of humanity swirl around her, alive. At 6 p.m., exhausted and eager, she stood back and surveyed the place. New espresso machine gleamed, feature wall painted cage with splotches of mustard that peaked like sunrise. Shelf lined with books, colorful, enduring. Bulletin board framed by fairy lights, waiting for cards and letters. Cozy tables with mismatched chairs that creaked with comfort. One table was empty across from hers, preserved for guests who couldn't pay. She thought of the diner, her smell of syrup and vinyl booths. This was different, but still built from that same heartbeat. She pressed her palm to the wall, surprised at how real it felt. Andrew stood behind her, hands folded. He let out a soft whistle. It's gorgeous. Her chest tightened. We didn't build this back to back. We built it forward step by step. He stepped beside her. This cafe will be more than a place to drink coffee, he said. It will be a beacon. She turned to him, eyes shimmering with exhaustion and triumph. A home. Their first customer arrived just then, an older woman with white hair and gentle eyes. Lily greeted her by name, offered a warm loaf even before the register. The woman's voice trembled as she said, I hear this is a place for everyone. Lily nodded. Always. The woman's tears glistened. She clutched the loaf. Lily escorted her to the pay-it-forward table in the corner and told her someone had covered her meal. The woman broke into a shaking smile and hugged Lily, and the cafe hummed with that moment. Beyond decor or brand, this was real. By evening, word had spread. Residents lined up for the first soft opening. Train whistles chugged outside. Neon from the street glowed warm. Conversations bubbled. Conversations about life, dreams, the kindness of a stranger, how a billionaire's money ended up making a neighborhood feel seen. Children devoured pastries while couples shared coffee. Lily moved through the crowd, refilling cups, checking on volunteers, offering comfort if someone needed it. Andrew stayed back, organizing supply runs, answering texts, but watched Lily like she was her own sunrise that morning. Around 9 p.m., they closed the doors. Lily turned the sign to closed, but the warm chatter spilled on through the windows. She flipped all the lights off, one by one. Andrew stood by her side, a rare pause enveloping them. She exhaled deeply. It feels alive. He nodded. It is alive. She looked at him, voice unsteady. What if we have to close it? What if they say we've failed? He wrapped an arm around her shoulder. Then we start again. He pulled something from his coat, a small binder with community partnership ideas, fundraising contacts, marketing leads. Help is coming in. People want to be part of this, he paused. But only if you lead. She traced the binder, heart soaring. I will. They walked back through the now dark cafe, trailing touches across the tabletops, almost a blessing pass. Then outside, beneath a quiet night sky, Lily closed the door behind them. A bolt slid into place. She paused, hand on the handle. A thought struck her. This wasn't about opening doors anymore. It was about keeping them open, wide, outward, hopeful. As they stepped away, a small boy's voice came from the darkness. Will you open again tomorrow? Lily blinked to find a street kid standing a few meters away, with hopeful eyes. She turned and smiled. Yes, we are open for everyone from sunrise. She paused and reached into her pocket, the small golden token she kept from the diner days, a token of identity. She pressed it into his hand and said, keep this and come inside any time. He stared at the token, astonished, then looked up. Thank you. Lily waved, breath catching. She looked at Andrew. He nodded as if saying, this is exactly why. Later at his car, Lily let the binder drop into her purse. She turned to him. What we built today, it matters. He smiled, proud, modestly quiet. Tomorrow we make it matter to hundreds. Her heart thundered. The next day, investors, press, local support rallies, the chapters to come. And the question hung in the night like smoke trailing from their cafe sign. What happens when a local spark becomes a movement? Lily woke before sunrise, her heart humming with anticipation. The sky was still gray-pink, an unspoken promise in dawn's first light. She slid into the cafe's slipper, soft, drawn to the aroma of fresh bread baking in the oven, just like she'd imagined. She ran a hand along a table where morning light played over mismatched wood and polished surfaces. Everything felt possible. Today was day one of the full launch. Months of vision, sweat, coffee-fueled planning, all leading here. She straightened the kindness served daily sign, taped up a motivational note for her team. Welcome to day one. Thank you for believing. Her breath caught. There were volunteers, students, veterans, neighbors, already arriving to help. Andrew stepped in a moment later, mug in hand, quiet and ready. He tapped her shoulder, gave her a nod. Let's unleash this dream. The cafe doors opened at 8, and the line began forming even before. Word had spread, a cafe that doesn't ask questions, that serves dignity. Lily stepped to the entrance, her voice clear yet warm. Good morning. Glad you're here. A hush of excitement rippled through the line. Smiles, shy waves, eager eyes. She jumped in, taking orders, taking names, learning stories. My name's Rosa. I'm here because my phone died and I forgot to pay last month. She smiled softly and said, Today's on me. My daughter loves the pancakes, said a young dad, eyes damp. She has asthma. Lily murmured, everyone deserves a morning that tastes like hope. Plates trundled out. Inside, volunteers hustled. Community board began filling with thank you notes, tales of second chance, personal victories. Soon the cafe was busting at the seams. Footsteps, laughter, conversation. Lily watched groups forming, mothers chatting, students studying, older men reading papers, veterans comparing service experiences, all swirled together by coffee and kindness. At 10 a.m., the sound of camera shutters drifted through. Local news there to capture the story. Lily paused over the coffee machine, face flushed, hands steady. She stepped forward to greet the reporter. Andrew stood behind her, quietly supportive. She glanced at him, pulse steady. This was hers. She explained, we serve food, sure, but more, we serve respect. We don't ask questions, just listen. That's our opening message. He filmed her smiling at a toddler who dipped a pancake into maple syrup, left a smudge on his cheek, and kept eating with glee. The child's laughter echoed. Lily felt it ripple inside her. But midday brought its test. A suited man, investor types, stepped forward. Is this funded by some charity? He asked loudly, looming in Lily's flow. She paused, leveled her eyes. No, it's funded by belief. She pointed to the board. People who believe in kindness as currency. He frowned, but the crowd hummed, siding with her. She turned back, heart pounding, but her voice never wavered. He fixed her with a stare. She held it until he looked away and walked off. The hush that followed felt like a vote. Though it was small, it felt giant. Lily stepped back behind the counter. Andrew pressed a cup into her hand. You were brilliant, he whispered. You made the place safe. She inhaled the coffee, its bitter sweetness grounding her. At one point, they opened the free pantry, shelves stocked with non-perishables, labeled take what you need, leave what you can. Donations poured in. Students left jars of peanut butter. A woman handed over household soap. A young man filled the shelf with toilet paper. Lily watched strangers connect through exchange. No money, only trust. And then the boy showed up. The boy from Rosie's diner. Slightly older, nervous, clutching a small backpack. She nearly dropped a bowl of soup. Their eyes locked. He nodded once, she ate by, and approached. She followed him, soup in hand. He stared at the notes pinned to the board. His drawing of a breakfast plate, his mother's thank you note. Tears brimmed. Lily knelt, hugged him gently. It's okay, she said. He whispered, thank you. She squeezed him. Thank you for being brave. The cafe hushed. Then applause built, slow and fierce. Lily sucked in a breath. The ripple here sounded like thunder. Evening came on fast. The volunteers packed in one final song. Strings of lights flickered outside. Business slowed. She tallied the day's totals. Cups served, meals gifted. The numbers blurred, but the impact was vivid. Lunch rush had max chairs. Donations overflowed shelves. Community board full of hope and thankfulness. At 6 p.m., just before closing, Andrew stepped up. He tapped lightly, bringing attention. She set down a stack of cups and turned. He cleared his throat. This is more than success, he began. It's a movement, proof that kindness can scale. He gestured behind them. That board, those jars, the boy. He met her eyes. We did this together. A lull held, like a final pause before promise. Someone yelled out, thank you. Others echoed. Lily's chest throbbed on the verge of tears. The investor from earlier slipped back in, quietly. He approached them. He looked Lily in the eyes. She braced. He swallowed once, then said, I misjudged you. This place, it's something the world needs. He left something on the counter, an envelope, sketch funding. She dared to look inside. Notes for community cafe expansion. Maybe this could become more than one building. Her fingers trembled. Night fell. She and Andrew stood side by side under soft light near the board. She watched stray notes drop. He placed a hand on her shoulder. We'll build more. She nodded, voice soft. We'll make it last. Outside, a cold breeze rattled the sign. She pressed fingers to the glass. Warm light held inside. Inside, the heart of a community moved stronger. She breathed in the sound, that swell of lives met, futures unfolded. It could feel fragile, but she had no doubt. This was strong. This was just beginning. As she locked the door and stepped away, day one of the cafe's life held promise in every echo and every heart she touched. She touched that sleek black card in her pocket. Tomorrow would bring day two, new challenges, deeper growth, maybe even doubts. But tonight she carried strength from a movement, and she wondered, what happens when the ripple becomes a wave? The sun dipped low as Lily unlocked the front door one chilly morning, her breath forming soft clouds in the cool air. She flipped the sign to open, then paused. Something had changed overnight. A large framed newspaper on the counter. Diner Waitress turns billionaire-backed cafe into movement. The front page article painted her as a darling of philanthropists and businesses. A stranger asked at the door, "Are you Lily Harper?" She nodded, skin prickling under the weight of the spotlight. At the counter, the familiar pang of purpose surged. Voices behind her, customers chatting about local expansion, investors asking about franchising, reporters requesting interviews. Just last week, Lily served soup. Today they asked about quarterly strategy. She steadied herself, apron tighter. Andrew slipped inside, carrying a folder thick with proposals and coffee cups. He met her by the pastry display, sharing half his smile and asking quietly, "Ready?" She nodded, swallowing. "We need to talk about growth. I don't want to lose who we are." He tapped the folder. "Right here, partnership proposals, community stakeholders, long-term vision. We call this partnership bigger than money." They headed to a corner table. A hush fell, customers too aware. Andrew opened a detailed packet, letters from school districts requesting breakfast programs, faith-based groups wanting youth mentorship space, foundations offering matching grants. The numbers were real. 300 potential partnerships, 5 communities lined up, and the possibility of 2 new cafe locations by year's end. Lily's heart thundered. Expansion meant growth, but could it protect their soul? The packet included financial projections, marketing strategies, legal frameworks, heavy documents meant to guide sustainable development, not operate a diner. She exhaled softly. "I'm honored by interest," she said, "but I'm worried we'll trade purpose for profit. That recipes will turn into spreadsheet rows." Andrew met her gaze. "It doesn't have to. Structure gives us the chance to protect core values. And yes, it'll cost more, but then this gift becomes legacy, not a flash." He slid over letters from families who'd been helped by the founder's jar, single mothers, homeless seniors, veterans recovering on minimal aid. Real stories with dirt, tears, blessing. "These people feed my faith," Lily whispered, voice thick. Andrew nodded. "So structure the way we do it. Keep partnerships local. Leadership stays in community hands. Funding stays rooted. We do impact-driven expansion." She turned the page. Blueprint for the first expansion cafe with a classroom space, part-time job training kitchen, mentorship corner for after-school youth programs. Architects had worked pro bono to design the space around inclusivity and dignity. Her breath caught. "The walls will hold our purpose, not dilute it." He offered her a hand across the table. "Let's build it, side by side." She grasped it, trembling. Could she trust this? They talked until lunchtime. Liens, liabilities, leases, getting real harder. Managerial team grew beyond family and volunteers. There were employees, mentors, board directors to consider. Sweat ran down her spine. But as she listened, she saw her evolution. A waitress becoming a leader. A dreamer becoming a strategist. Lunchtime broke in with ordering frenzy. Hearty soup, baked bread, volunteers taking orders, customers chatting about upcoming cafe opening in another town. A mother with young children asked, "Will there be a location near us soon?" Lily nodded and squeezed the woman's hand across the counter. "Yes, soon." Later, Andrew arranged a meeting with local leaders at the bakery next door, a demonstration of grassroots partnership. A school superintendent introduced himself. He'd heard Lily would provide weekend breakfast kits. After a few minutes, Lily found herself telling him, "We're all about that second chance morning. Kids deserve dignity on weekends too." He shook her hand warmly. Inside, Lily felt acknowledgement, not from money but from heart. That afternoon, Lily spoke with her brother, now thriving at culinary school. He buzzed with ideas, meal plans that utilize leftovers in community outreach. She realized their partnership, even back in the family, was blossoming. Purpose was contagious. Day waned, and final numbers showed their first month exceeded 5,000 meals served, 20 partnership offers, and 3 donor foundations ready for annual commitments. The packet on the table felt like a launch pad, landing strip to humanitarian possibilities. As dusk fell, Lily found herself by the classroom corner, a donated library full of books and a chalkboard reading, "You matter, you belong." She scooped a piece of chalk and added one word, always. That single word, the bracelet's promise, now glowed against the board. Andrew watched from the doorway. He asked softly, "Why always?" She turned, voice steady, "Because this was never a moment. It's a movement. Always there, always safe, always giving." She laid the chalk down like a record to be kept. The lights dimmed. They stood side by side amidst the scent of coffee and promise. She pressed her hand to the board. He gave her space. They didn't clasp hands, not yet, just held presence. Outside, headlights slowed as they passed the name plastered under soft bulbs. Lily's Place, classroom and cafe. Beyond that, a second sign glowed. Coming soon, neighborhood hub, a city ready to open its arms. She exhaled. Partners, critics, funders, they'd see what she did today. She wondered, would they stand behind it even when initial charity fades? Could kindness be sustainable at scale? Andrew stepped close. "Whatever happens," he said softly, "we do it together." She nodded. In a partnership bigger than money, rooted in purpose. The lights went out. They stepped outside. Rain began again, not threatening, but cleansing. Lily pulled up her hood. The cafe behind them seemed alive, breathing out hope. Andrew chimed, "Shall we build number 2? She looked at him, then at the sign, then military veterans waiting for volunteer roles, mothers picking up kits, students scribbling new words of hope. And she whispered, "Yes, let's show them what kindness making real change looks like." And the rain-painted street gleamed under the promise of more. What happens now? Will the next cafe stay true, or will volume threaten the soul? Lily woke before dawn, her mind racing with a single question. Am I ready? The quiet apartment felt heavy with possibility. Sunlight pressed through the blinds like a demand. Get up, choose. She stared at the phone screen. Office, noon. Confirmation from Andrew. He wanted her to speak at next week's board meeting. Investors, press, advisors. The expansion hinged on it, but her heart hammered. Could she step into a room full of powerful people and recklessly promise kindness as strategy? She dressed carefully. Simple blouse, soft skirt, silver always bracelet glittering in morning light. With it, she was more than a waitress. She was a leader born of something deeper. She inhaled, her fingers tracing the letters on the bracelet. Always. The cafe was awake when she arrived. Soft conversations drifted from corners. Smell of fresh bread. Volunteers arranged books in the reading nook. Lily slipped in quietly and walked the space. A veteran volunteer with calloused hands smiled at her. We're ready, he said. She offered a small nod of gratitude, heart pounding, but grounded. This was what mattered, the ripple of community readiness, not the boardroom, not yet. She took a seat in the back booth, seeing everything. The pay-it-forward jars glinted. A young mother cradled a baby in one chair, looking relieved. 2 teenage boys whispered into hot chocolates. Kids were sketching on paper tablecloths. Superheroes. She thought of the boy in the diner. The first smile, the first trust. It all started there. Minutes before noon, Andrew walked in. No entourage. He slid into the seat across from her. He met her eyes. "You're sure?" he asked gently. She nodded, but voice barely registered. "I am." He reached forward across the table, guiding his palm across hers. Wordless, but everything passed in that touch. They rose together and stepped toward the office. The boardroom was imposing. Floor-to-ceiling glass, sleek leather chairs, stern eyes. She paused at the door. Her breath hissed in her ears. Andrew stood behind her, supportive silence. She pictured a line through the room, cafe to boardroom. Could integrity cross it? Inside, Andrew signaled to start. She watched him distribute folders, impact reports, budgets, expansion plans, community testimonials, photos of veterans smiling, children reading, neighbors hugging volunteers, her neighbors. He clicked a live screen, filling it with charts and numbers balanced with inspiring quotes. Dignity served daily. Then Andrew stepped aside and nodded at her. The silence cracked. She stepped forward, heart burning. "Thank you all for coming," she began, voice trembling but clear. "I'm Lily Harper, founder of Lily's Place, and someone who once owed everything to a simple plate of food." She paused, listening to own breathing. Then she launched into her story: the diner, the soup, the boy who whispered, "I'm hungry." She spoke of moments unnoticed: free pastries for a mother, breakfast kits for school, pay-it-forward coffee. She watched faces soften. They knew numbers. They knew ROI. But she was speaking the currency of humanity. "And that night," she continued, "a stranger saw me. He believed that building a business could be about people, not just profit." Her gaze hit Andrew's, remembering that first check, the first board of generosity. "So he offered me a choice: grow into a number or stay something real." She walked to the screen. Slide. Project Blossom. Blueprint for second location. Slide. Projected capacity. Projected partnerships. Projected impact. Under each number, heart. "What I am asking for," she said, meeting their eyes directly, "is not just investment. I'm asking for permission. Permission to prove that empathy can drive enterprise. That what we do, serving meals to veterans, building reading corners for children, breakfast kits for families, is good business. And it's right." There was a hush. She swallowed. Then, "Or you can support me building one perfect cafe that changes this community forever. Not 10 that lose soul." Her last words hung heavy. "Which do we choose?" She stepped back. Someone cleared their throat, a senior investor. "Mrs. Harper," he said, "this is compelling, but scaling this kind of model isn't straightforward. Margins are thin, regulations tight. How will you stay sustainable?" Lily took a breath. "By being lean, by repeating the model with local partners. Each site supported locally, staffed locally, accountable locally, and by partnering with businesses who believe in our mission, we crowdsource impact." She clicked to a slide showing corporate volunteers staging reading events, retailers donating pastries monthly. "We're not reinventing charity. We're business rooted in grassroots." Her hand grazed the pocket where her silver bracelet flared, even beneath her sleeve. Always, she'd stand by her values. The room shifted. Another board member, a woman CEO, leaned in. "You're asking us to trade conventional growth for purpose-led growth," she said. Lily held her gaze. "Yes, I believe purpose isn't just compatible. It's superior." She read their faces: uncertainty, curiosity, inspiration. Her voice firmed. "I've done this already. One cafe, 5,000 free meals, 3 new partnerships, proof that people will support this vision. The expansion isn't a gamble, it's an invitation to choose a new future for impact-driven business." Silence followed. She caught Andrew's eye. He nodded once. She exhaled. The senior investor sat straight. "You have conviction and results. I'm willing to back a pilot, phase 1, within budget, conditional on hitting community benchmarks." Others murmured assent. The room buzzed. She felt each of the unseen heroes, veterans, single parents, volunteers, watching from outside that boardroom. They voted with their presence. The CEO stood. "Count me in too, with leadership network support." Lily's chest thundered. Tears squeezed her eyes. She had chosen. They had chosen her, and she'd stayed herself in the choice. Andrew gathered the folders. She reached out. Her handshake was firm, solid. We did this together. Across the table, accredited signatures sped past. Once the boardroom doors closed behind her, she leaned against the wall, trembling. How did it feel? He brushed her shoulder. You were remarkable. She closed her eyes. I was Lily. He sighed, relieved. Yes, you were. They walked back to the cafe, leaving figures behind but carrying purpose forward. Wednesday afternoon shadows moved across tables, still polished. Patrons chatted softly in corners. Kindness hummed in the air. She breathed it all in. Andrew slipped beside her. He reached out and touched her silver bracelet. Always. We said we'd do this together, he whispered. Are you ready? She met his gaze, steady, fierce, joyful. Always. And across the cafe, words carved in fairy lights glowed quietly. Kindness is currency. She touched the words as if they were a vow. What happens when kindness leads the agenda? She awoke to the gentle hum of early morning traffic, sunlight slanting through the curtains, and for the first time in weeks, she didn't feel alone. The phone buzzed with a reminder. Board meeting 9 a.m. Lily took a deep breath, swinging her legs out of bed, feeling the weight of what they'd built, and the momentum it carried forward. Downstairs, the cafe walls had absorbed laughter, ideas, meals. It was waking with purpose before sunrise. Volunteers bustled in, shelves curated, coffee machines hissed. And Lily reached for her silver bracelet, whispering the word inside, always, and let its promise ground her. By the time she walked in, every head turned, not just because she was the founder standing at the door, but because they already felt like part of something much bigger. A single tear escaped her eye as she watched veteran mentors help with the orders, teens reading over their homework, and parents sipping coffee behind soft, hopeful smiles. These weren't guests, they were family. She greeted Andrew in the back room. He passed her a coffee. They exchanged a small smile, the kind forged in countless late nights and daunting boardrooms, built on trust, belief, heart. The rhythm of the cafe, quiet but purposeful, pulsed in her chest. Today their greatest test awaited. They arrived at the bright corporate building, a temple of glass and authority. The expansion board meeting had more attendees today, local investors, potential community partners, media. Their audience was no longer just believers. They expected numbers, results, impact metrics tied to community engagement and repayment timelines. Lily stepped up to the podium, heart pounding. But today she spoke not as a hopeful idealist, but as a leader with ambition rooted in empathy. She introduced the plan, 3 new community hubs over 18 months, each hub to include free library programs, mentorship kitchens, and pay-it-forward meal systems. She announced an initial impact fund, seeded by Hale Enterprises and matched by local businesses, aiming to serve 20,000 meals and 500 youth mentorship hours in the first year. It was risk, bold, necessary. She felt the investors' eyes, calculating, questioning. She met each one calmly. The first cafe reached capacity. We delivered 5,000 meals in our opening month and galvanized 50 volunteers. The pilot site in the next community already secured donated rent and volunteers from the school district. We're not starting from zero, we're building momentum. Questions followed. How would she maintain quality across sites? She explained a decentralized leadership model. Each hub run by a local kindness council, vetted and supported by headquarters, ensuring dignity and community responsiveness stayed paramount. Recipes and operations were standardized for cost effectiveness, but interior design, menu options, local partnerships would vary. One heart, many faces, she said, tapping her bracelet, turning the metaphor into reality. Another voice, financial viability. She pointed to plans showing earned revenue from premium items, artisan coffees and weekend workshops, to subsidize meals for those who couldn't pay. Transparent financials weren't charity, they were sustainable generosity. She closed with, "This isn't just goodwill, It's a grounded, scalable ecosystem of empathy and enterprise. Silence followed. A senior investor stood. Ms. Harper, I was skeptical. Bureaucracy, oversight, capital demands. But your numbers show a path, and your conviction is real. I'm in. Murmurs of agreement swept through the room. Eyes glowed with soft determination as the media took notes. Sheets rustled. The board approved the plan. They shook hands across the table. She exhaled as if oxygen had been withheld her whole life. She'd chosen courage, and courage had answered. Later, as she and Andrew exited the building, the day felt electric. A winter sun warmed her back. She turned to him. We did it. He nodded, expression grave with pride. Your dream just stepped forward. They spent the afternoon at first real construction site. Volunteers from the neighborhood painted walls yellow and blue, echoing the original cafe's warmth. Neighbors offered bread, tables, labor. Music played, children danced. Lily helped mix paint, laugh, cheer. She held the shovel in soft earth for a small tree planted by local school children, the symbol of growth rooted from kindness. A reporter approached. Are you still doing this? For them? Not just press? She looked at children singing around them. I'll do it for them, even if no one else watches. He nodded, visibly moved. At dusk, a quiet moment. The sun lowered behind the half-constructed building. Lily and Andrew stood on the dirt floor where the coffee bar would stand, dust motes suspended in golden light. She pressed a hand to his. We're not alone. He let out a breath. Yes, they were surrounded by the hum of lives. She drew in the smell of sawdust and fresh timber and said, this is our first ripple, but it will become stronger. Together. He handed her a small envelope with construction updates and community pledges. She read, funding goal exceeded by 15%. She looked up, heart swelling, tears dampening her lashes. And in that moment, standing in unfinished walls and hopes, they shared a silent vow. They would build a movement not alone, but as a collective, a tapestry of kindness. A ripple had become something else entirely. From here, what becomes the threshold? They must translate the energy into tenacity. They will face struggles, resource constraints, criticism, bureaucracy. But tonight, at the birth of their second site, Lily Harper realized the future she launched wasn't just her own, it was theirs. And never again would she, or any community she served, stand alone.